take your sister's veil off.
Make her take it off, Mommy. Alice, take your old veil. Alice, stupid thing. What's wrong with you? She's your sister. I don't understand you. It's wrong.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum podcast. I'm Ryan from closeploitation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
I do it pretty well. We are back, and this is technically one of our episodes post-tribute, I guess you could say. We did a number of episodes previously of tributes to our fallen heroes in the cult film sphere, and although we did talk about this a little bit, this movie was planned for a bit, and I've been wanting to do it, but it happens to coincide, unfortunately, with the Pope's death, and it's happens. I don't know if it's a happy little coinky dink or whatever, but
JD Vance is one of our listeners, so
yeah, JD Vance. Next, please. Don't come anywhere near us with a 10-foot pole.
Killed the poor pole.
Yeah, I don't want to be his next victim. Somebody did point out that he has, get rid of the eyeliner and the beard that he's got, and he's John Wayne Gacy. So it's totally a possibility. But yeah, this the movie that we're doing today is definitely very, very much centered around Catholicism, religion in general. And but heavily factors in Catholicism and its themes, and it's not very it's pretty pointed about the way that it sees organized religion, and specifically Catholics with their shame and guilt and all kinds of things within the religious sphere. So it happens to coincide pretty nicely with the Pope's death, who is, I guess, lying in state right now. So. Rip Pope, but happens to fall nicely with our themes. So, and the movie that we're talking about today, I'll start off by saying as well, is a Brooke Shields movie, if you want to count it that way. Whenever I've heard it referenced, one of the main things that people point out about this movie, it's like, yeah, that's Brooke Shields' first movie. It's like Brooke Shields is in it for like 5 minutes. She shows up at the beginning of this movie, and that's about it. So yeah, it's her first movie, but she doesn't really have a whole lot to do in it. But we're talking about 1976's Alice, Sweet Alice, also known by a number of other names, had like various releases throughout the UK and the United States, and it was also referred to in I think its original title and the original full format of the movie as Communion. And then also known, which probably is the lesser version of the names that it's had, known as Holy Terror as well, which I think is so, I don't know, is it too on the nose? Is it too ridiculous? I don't know. I just don't like it that much for the title. But
so I'm going to say totally missed opportunity by Columbia and whoever ended up actually, I can't remember, picking up the movie. Mm-hmm. I did watch on your Blu-ray the Arrow with the 20-minute interview with Alfred Sole, the director, talking about how originally it was Columbia was supposed to pick it up and they ended up dropping it, and then whoever picked it up was insistent that the title be renamed from Communion to Alice, Sweet Alice. One, fucking stupid. For a movie made on a budget of $350,000, coming still into the hot heels of Omen and The Exorcist, you're gonna not ride onto the Catholic horror wave there? Stupid. Absolutely stupid.
So you're saying you don't like the widely known Alice, Sweet Alice as the main
It's
title.
okay, but like Communion, like
Yeah, I mean,
I think that fits more, especially like with the times. Like, I mean, like what horrible marketing there. I mean, like it's right there. Like you want to get people to see this movie? Hey, from like you've seen The Omen, Damien. It's all for you. You've seen The Exorcist. Your mother's a fucking slut in hell. Now see Communion.
yeah. No, I mean, I totally get it. I don't know why they didn't have you on the marketing train there. Because you're right. I like Alice Sweet Alice as a title. I think that's a pretty cool little thing. Like it's memorable because of the way that it, repeats her name and everything like that. But you're right. Communion is definitely more of a, it adheres more to the Catholic religious elements that are at play in the movie. Alice Sweet Alice as a title doesn't really tell you all that much about what you're getting. Whereas Communion, it kind of hints at that religious element and really ties in. At this point, I don't remember. The Omen also released in 1976. I don't know which one of these movies came out first, if it was The Omen or Communion, but you're right. Regardless, I mean, The Exorcist came out in 1973, so to tie in with that for the religious element,
or hell, Rosemary's Baby, for God's sakes, just.
And interestingly, yeah, I mean, Rosemary's Baby even earlier than that. Like, and interestingly, with The Exorcist, one of the main criticisms of The Exorcist over the years has been the fact that it does adhere so widely to Catholic beliefs, and it sort of like reiterates them throughout the movie. Whereas Alice Sweet Alice, as we'll talk about when we get into the movie, is sort of like at odds with the religious element and sort of is much more critical of Catholic, the way that the Catholic religion treats like shame and guilt throughout the religious element. So I think that's interesting, that it's kind of at odds, and they didn't want to go with a more religious sounding title. I don't know. Interesting to note. Had you seen or heard of Alice Sweet Alice prior to this?
No. I know you've mentioned it a couple of times, but it's not a slasher that's ever popped up on my radar over the years.
It's interesting because, yeah, like you said, this movie is a slasher movie that is actually pretty underrated. I would say
it's like the prototype.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're gonna say, like, a lot of people like to credit Halloween as like the first true slasher, with like Psycho being like the prototype. I think this is like this is your like if Rockabilly's like the prototype to proto-punk, and then you get punk. This is your proto-punk here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an early slasher. It has a lot of slasher elements to it. It does its own thing too. I think here again we do get a lot of giallo tendencies as well. Whether that was intentional or not. We'll talk about how this movie has a lot of like the ideas that are generally at play in giallo films. It kind of uses the similar motifs throughout and things like that. So it's an interesting early slasher film. Doesn't really get as much recognition as it probably deserves. I know that over the years, especially with the boutique Blu-ray labels releasing, and Arrow has, previously released this on Blu-ray, I think, like 4 or 5 years ago. And then again, they've released it on 4K just recently. It's been getting kind of a resurgence. I just recently read the House of Psychotic Women book by Kira Janice as well, which goes into Alice Sweet Alice a little bit. She includes that in her book. So there is some recognition of this movie, but it's actually surprising that it's not as well received and well known as some of the other slashers of the period, because in my opinion, it is an excellent movie. And we'll talk about why I think that way as we get into it, but it just doesn't get as much recognition, and for people to not know about it is kind of surprising. So it's always, I love to bring it up because a lot of people don't know about it, and I think they should, which is part of the reason why I wanted to do it on the show. And I guess I kind of went over too, I've seen it multiple times, probably my 4th or 5th time watching it throughout the years. I think I watched it a while ago because it was one of those movies where I remember it, I think this probably was in college or so. People were saying Alice, I don't know, online somewhere I saw Alice Sweet Alice, good movie. And I was like, oh, never heard of that before, so I think I'll check that out. And I watched it and have loved it ever since. So I don't know. It was love at first sight, I guess, for us. So all right, let's take a break real quick before we get into the movie proper. Let's talk about the beer that we have on the show today. And we'll be honest with you, beer selection has been kind of meh of late. Nothing's really been catching our eye or nothing super exciting so far, or at least that we've gotten around here. So instead of doing something like just kind of forcing something, I had recently gotten from our local Aldi one of their beers, because they also make beer and sell beer. If you're lucky enough to have an Aldi that has a liquor license or beer license, they can distribute beer and wine. Recently, our Aldi did get that license, so now they do sell like wine and beer and seltzer and cider. And I thought that was pretty cool. And generally, their beers are pretty cheap. And I've had a couple of them, and I've not been disappointed by them so far. So I picked up their new Limaveza Lime Lager. And now again, because Aldi makes these, they're kind of like that, like the Amazon brand of like, is this a real company or is it not? Like, is it just like a shell company that they've slapped a name on, like Limaveza? I don't know who specifically makes these beers.
It says brewed and canned by ABW Virginia Beach Limited Liability. So that sounds like a shell company.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, I don't really know who makes them, but I do know that for a 6-pack, it was like $7. So I could not pass it up. And I grabbed it and we decided, hey, you know what? Let's do it for the show. So we have it on. Again, I know Martin has said that he's in full-on summer beer drinking mood at this point. It's only going to be light lagers and cervezas and things like that from here on out for him. So it was a perfect tie-in for that. So I'll let you go first, because I've had, I think this is my 4th now that I've had of the Limaveza. What do you think about the Limaveza?
It's like a nice like kind of version of like Bud Lime. It's got more of a actual beer flavor to it, like a more of a actual cerveza. You definitely get like some nice bready malt. The lime definitely at the forefront, big and bold, but not like too sugary, like a fake sugary lime. You know, it's got a good balance to it, very light, easy to drink. You know, light mouthfeel, easy to go down. I don't know what the percent on this is.
4.5.
Yeah. This is a nice, refreshing beer that I can see like mowing the lawn and being like, oh, I gotta take a break. My Limaveza from Aldi.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. I'm pretty impressed. Like I said, it's especially coming after that horrendous Corona Sunbrew.
Yeah,
it's definitely like something nice to look to.
Yeah, I mean, I am a big fan of the lime beers. I always have been since college, when I had Bud Light Lime illegally in my dorm room. And I was a big, I have good memories of just like kicking back, having a nice Bud Light Lime and enjoying myself. And so lime beers have always been a really big, like passion of mine. I try not to pass up a chance to have a lime lager at any point. And I feel like this one does a really good job of mimicking the Bud Light Lime. I think you've hit it on right on the head. It's basically a light version of that. I think it has a lot of flavor to it, so it's not exceptionally watery or anything like that. It's got a nice lime flavor that isn't overwhelmingly like artificial. Its light lager body is easy drinking, goes down smooth. Very good for like a hot weather type of beer where you're out mowing the lawn or something, and you just want to chug something. I think it does a really good job of meeting all of those without being too artificial or sweet or lacking the flavor profile. So, if you're looking for a even cheaper version of something like a Bud Light Lime or a Labatt Blue Lime, stop at Aldi because they've got, a 6-pack for like $7. Now, I'm not saying that it's always going to be there because Aldi's kind of famous for having it one day and not the next. So, your mileage may vary on whether you can actually find it there. So with that, you can't make this like a staple beer, I don't think, for yourself because, you might get yourself hooked on it and then one day you go in and they don't have it anymore. And that's kind of just the whole shtick of being at Aldi. They've got what they got. So, I think this is a limited time thing. It's not like it's always going to be there, but if you can go out and find it at your local Aldi that has a beer license, I would recommend it, especially for the price, because and again, like I said, I've never really been snubbed by any of the Aldi beers that I've had. I think I've had 2 or 3.
They've all been. You said one of them that you've had was like a Heineken, and it was pretty darn good. Which we both love our Heinekens here. So
yeah. I mean, and I've never really had a bad one there from them. And they've all been, Aldi does most of the time does a pretty good job too of their like in-house, whoever's making their stuff like food, and they do a pretty good representation of brand names, and they pretty much get it. I don't know how they do it, but their food scientists there are testing all of the brand names and putting it into their little plankton recipe machine and figuring out what the secret ingredients are, because they do a pretty good job of imitating stuff. So Limaveza, definitely check it out. I would recommend. Again, it would be something that I would like to add as a sort of staple in my fridge, when it's hot and I'm just like looking for something tasty to drink, because I think it does meet that pretty well. All right, let's talk about Alice, Sweet Alice, or Communion, or Holy Terror, whatever the hell you want to call it. So what do you think about that opening sequence where it's communion? We've got Alice, who is kind of a little jealous girl going through adolescence. Her mother is mostly more paying attention to her younger sister, Karen, who's played by Brooke Shields. And
much more doting.
What's that?
It says she's much more doting to her.
Alice is kind of getting the short end of the stick here. Mostly, getting yelled at versus Karen, who's like the baby of the bunch and is kind of doted on. And eventually, it's at the beginning, it's Karen who's receiving communion, and there's like a whole special shindig that they've got going on at the church where their friend Father Tom is treating all of these little girls specially for their communion. And at the beginning, that's where we get the initial murder that occurs in Alice, Sweet Alice, and kind of sets everything off. What do you think about that? Set in the church during communion and during mass.
Very creative. I think that was really cool. While the communion's going on, we get to see Karen get strangled out and slowly dragged across the floor and thrown into that box with the candle, and the nun is useless. Oversees everything here. She's like, whoa, oh, mom.
I love how throughout this movie they keep coming back to the nun. Like even at one time, Father Tom is way later in the movie, but it's the same nun. She's always got that very miserable scowl on her face, and he's like, we don't want the nun being late for her lunch, and he just makes the little crack, and she's having none of it.
Just exasperate the entire time.
I love that. I love that nun so much. And not only that, but don't you love to, I mean, I guess anybody would probably react to this, but when she's sniffing out the fire and throws open that little bench and she's like, "Whoa!" and just gonna start screaming and staring. It's an amazing scene. But really, honestly though, I think that opening sequence with the murder is set up extremely well. Because of course, the whole idea and the motif that's going to occur over and over again in Alice, Sweet Alice is that there's a killer in a yellow raincoat, a yellow slicker, depending on, your vernacular.
Slicker. I think those are slickers, and we're not one to be banding about that term, but like that's a right proper slicker.
That's a slicker, yeah. It's a St. Michael's slicker. It's one that's given by the church, and most of the little girls have it. So there's like a proliferation of these yellow rain jackets throughout the church. And so, basically the only thing that we get is that we know Alice has a yellow slicker. We know that she was late to mass, and everybody else does as well. And the idea there is that, because we've seen pretty early on, prior to the murder, that Alice is she can be a little bitch sometimes. I mean, we're going to not mince words here. She's kind of I guess you could literally call her a holy terror. She's kind of always getting into mischief. She's, obviously known for her antics, and it's kind of why her mother treats her the way she does. And so you already have, for the audience, a little precedent that makes them think like, well, you know what? She is kind of a little pain in the ass. Maybe she did do it. And so you have the film, and Alfred Sole is setting up this idea that like even us as the viewer are sort of prejudiced against Alice, and everybody else is too. And ultimately the movie revolves around the fact that mostly everyone suspects Alice, and she is just an adolescent kid trying to grow up, and is being suspected of committing these heinous murders throughout. And I think too, at the when we see that murder happening, it is pretty shocking. For one thing, kids aren't killed that often on screen in movies. Whether that is warranted or not, or why it's so taboo. It just happens to be the case that most of the time kids aren't murdered on screen. There's, many, many movies that would even shy away from, if they did have a child murder, it generally happens off screen. In this one, it's pretty blunt in the way that it's shown. I mean, you basically see Karen getting strangled with what is it? Is it just like a candle that she's got? She's holding like a candle that's strangling her. I think it's a candle. It looks like a baton or a candle that she's got going on there. So you see it happen on screen. And then not only that, though, the film kind of comes back to that again and again, especially like the whole idea of her not only strangling the kid and putting her on a bench, but then setting it on fire too is like almost a even further step that the film takes it into like more shock territory, because, you just think about it from the parent's perspective as well. It's one thing to find your child dead and they were strangled or something in a bench. But like now they've been completely incinerated, set on fire, and there's the aftermath of that. And I think the film does a really great job of showing the chaos once they eventually find out that it was Karen that was in the bench that's dead, with Catherine's sister coming, and her husband's like trying to hold her back, like, no, you will not go and tell her. You will not. She's like, I have to. And he's trying to hold her back, and then just all hell breaks loose because of that chaos. It's a really great scene. I think it really sets the film up for a climax later on as it revolves around that killing. I think it really captures the audience very well. And then not only that too, but with the fire, they come back to that with that horrid picture of almost like Exorcist level picture of her. Her dead body, the facial shot of her with the photograph that they're sending down at the lab.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of look like Exorcist-like. Yeah. But like, again, it's kind of like that shock element of like, they're not shying away from the fact that this little girl was murdered. And then again, too, the blasphemy of it being at mass and communion and in a church, and all of that is sort of roped into the religious element of Alice, Sweet Alice. I think that also works really well. The movie revolves around this idea of religion, because Father Tom is sort of a planetary being that keeps orbiting their life. He's very close with Mother Catherine and their friends, and he's involved in like the murder investigation a little bit too. So that keeps coming up again and again. This film kind of goes into various different elements, but there is a sort of murder investigation that occurs with the police. I I think that the police here. How did you feel about this? Do you think that the police are sort of the film's kind of showing the police as being ineffectual here too?
Yeah, no, there's ineffectual because even though this film, especially on this budget of $350,000 for 1976, takes pretty good pains and stakes to make things, feel like the clock's been rolled back to 1961, like the women with their hair and wardrobe and the cars and the sets. The men are running around like they couldn't be fucking bothered. And that includes the police force that are walking around with their shirts unbuttoned halfway down with chest hairs popping out. Like, what Patterson, a police officer in 1961, beat cop, is like, whew! It's like 40 degrees out, but I gotta have my chest hair.
Yeah. I mean,
it's the same thing, too. The detectives, couldn't be bothered to get a haircut. They're all looking shaggy and like it's not 1961. Same thing, too. They don't have time to go investigate this poor little girl's murder. They got big titties next to their 1961 calendar, like these pinups of just giant titties sitting there. God bless 4K for updating the resolution and everything, because you could just see, in the detective, his office is here's some just pinups, the stuff that I jack off to with my partner when,
Don't you just love
I need a good release?
You're a distraught mother coming in, you're reporting a missing person or something, and right next to you, got a pinup of topless women just staring you right in the face. It's,
the mommy milkers from you can't compete, but we'll try.
Again, though, I think this movie too, it is very critical of religion, of course, but it's also critical of the police. They don't do a very good job, and throughout the movie, you can tell that it's kind of coming to the conclusion that the police are pretty ineffectual about what they're doing. They're not going to solve this, for one thing. They don't do a good job. I love the fact that when they bring Alice in for the lie detector test, especially later on when they're asking if she killed Karen and she killed the others, because there's multiple murders in this that are happening, especially her father is killed as well, Dom, and her aunt what's her name, Annie. Her aunt Annie is stabbed in the hallway in a great sequence where again there's a woman, a kid, young person, or what looks to be a young person in a yellow rain slicker spotted in the stairwell, and they are suspecting Alice, and so they bring her in for questioning with a lie detector test, and they ask her all these questions, and then later on the lie detector guy is did you see how she reacted when I touched her titties? She basically wanted me to grope her.
God, and how fucking creepy.
Right, and I think, again, though, this film does often bring up the fact, and, it's not particularly specifically tied to religion, but it does have a tendency to show
the chauvinism.
Chauvinism and the inappropriateness of adults, especially with children, and with female children. Because again, throughout this movie, there is sort of a connotation. It's not. It's implied. It's not that fully there, but there's a connotation that her neighbor Alfonso may also be kind of a creep.
Not may also.
Yeah. I mean,
wow, put that one down gently, Ryan.
It's
the landlord may be a bit of a creep as he's grabbing her muff and being
it's not it's not super explicit, but it's definitely implied that there could be some sort of pedophilia going on there too. And so the idea that this film kind of shows the sexualization of children when they are really just adolescents, and sort of finds fault in an adolescent child when they end up having nothing to do with it, I think is really interesting. Again, it ties into the religious element as well, because a lot of the religious element here is the sins of the fathers affecting the children. as well as the fact of like how religion, specifically Catholicism, effectively keeps you in a loop of your trauma affecting you and forcing you to repent for it, which then causes you even more hardship as you can never really get over that guilt and shame within the Catholic religion, right? Because it's, you're always looking for a release from that trauma.
You're looking for penance.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thought that I've had, and I'm kind of crystallizing it now as I'm thinking about it. You know what these kind of themes kind of remind me of?
What's up?
Straw Dogs.
Yeah.
Which is the Anglican Church, which is basically British Catholicism, and with women's liberation and looking at youthful women in a certain light and women's plays.
Yeah,
there's a pretty good thematic through line you can make between those two films.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously, Straw Dogs with more of a overall, chauvinist, whether intended or not, perspective of with Dustin Hoffman trying to, show his manhood, but like a lot of the same themes from this film on that end kind of correlate. I would say to watching Straw Dogs, which.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, folks, check out our episode after you watch it because it's a great movie.
Yeah.
That we reviewed like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you've got something there with the through lines, and I think part of the most interesting elements of Alice Sweet Alice are the fact that later on, and I think it's pretty clear to the audience, even about an hour in or so, that it's not Alice who's doing these murders, right? And I don't unlike a giallo film. I don't think Alice Sweet Alice actually intends the audience to really suspect Alice at all. I think that, again, they set her up to be somewhat unlikable at the beginning of the movie because it is meant to prejudice you, not so much that you suspect Alice of the murders, but that you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I can understand why they might think so, though.
Because she's just a bitchy, like they see her as a bitchy little child. Yeah. Which sorry to interrupt, but that works with the theme perfectly because it's talking like the film has a lot of nuance to it. It's talking about the emotional and psychological neglect that she's faced as a child. So for her to be seen as, excuse me again, Jesus, sorry, as a problem child, it's like, oh yeah, it obviously her. So it would be very reductive if at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, it really was her. She was just jealous. She was just jealous of the Karen being like, my dolly,
Yeah. I mean, I like it though, because again, the film, it's setting you up to see this child as sort of like an unlikable being. And then later on, like you said, you start to see that's why she's unlikable, because she's first of all, she's an adolescent. She is trying to navigate puberty, right? And that's not always easy. She's not really able to talk to her mother in a way that she feels comfortable with, because later on it's revealed she's gotten her period, but she never told her mom about it. And so, kind of like a Carrie element there too, of a woman who she's going through her pubescent period and doesn't really have anybody to turn to. And so the film kind of turns that on the audience as well, and saying well, listen, you weren't, as the audience too, we weren't really that understanding of her predicament, what she's going through. And I think that kind of perfectly is summed up later on when you're basically just throw her into a mental institution. You know what? I don't know what to do with her. She's just fucking annoying, She's just being really annoying right now, and my daughter's dead, so
could it be a sanitarium?
Yeah, right. I think Alfred Sole has a lot to say in this movie that's sort of implicit within the themes of listen to children sometimes, just they're children, right? This is not an adult who should know better. She's a child. She's looking for guidance, and like all these people just kind of ignore it. And
we don't really get to see too much of like her mom being like a problem. We just kind of see her doting on Karen, but it's like I think that's kind of a missed opportunity because we see her sister, her aunt, be the one that's a vicious bitch to her, blaming everything on her. And so the fact that we don't see her really she is like she definitely is like, neglectful and stuff because the fact that,
there's that whole part at the beginning with she comes in and they're like, where's Alice? She's like, I don't know. I don't know where she went.
Yeah.
And they're like,
but I think the fact this is like the one thing I'd say like with the film, especially in modern lenses, I don't think works as well because the whole idea of like the nuclear family, we're so far gone beyond that now. Like, if you can't like understand, single mom, dad got, they got a divorce, which to be honest with you, the way these two are acting seemed like it was a pretty amicable divorce.
Yeah.
They're acting pretty,
it just didn't work out, but they like each other and they, they're comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And I think I think there is a danger here with the way when Dom comes in and, Catherine kind of invites him in and he basically sticks around as sort of like the hero father character is like, I need to find out who killed my daughter.
He's looking damn like John Cassavetes.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Babies. But with those turtlenecks and shit.
I do think there's a danger here at points where the film almost turns to like, well, this little girl just needs a father figure. It's like, oh well, things was the problem.
The nuclear family broke down.
Everything would have been better if they just had a pair of testicles in the house. That thing's straight. It's just too many things syncing up.
I can't tell you how you did on your cross stitch there, sweetie, because I don't do that. That's for your mother.
Yeah, but I like the whole idea of the fact that the film, again, like I said, it doesn't necessarily want the audience to buy into the fact that Alice is the murderer. It doesn't really treat that. And it actually, I checked the time, I think about an hour and maybe 10 minutes in, the film actually reveals who the killer is. So like, it's not like again, we said, this movie's kind of like a giallo. It's not like a giallo in the fact that you are left to guess the murderer till the very end. You're not really expected to do that. Again, it reveals it to you with about 30 minutes left in the movie.
Which thoughts?
Yeah, what do you think?
Not that big of a fan of it.
Oh, you're not a fan? Okay. You didn't like that they revealed it.
It's not that I took away from the film, but I think the fact that you still have like a half hour left and they already kind of show who the killer is.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, the mystery, like, that's half the fun of, like, when you're watching a giallo. It's like, who could it be in the red herrings? There's no real red herrings in this movie. Your prime suspect the entire time is just Alice. And they don't, and again, I understand because it's not, like, the premise of the film. Like you said, it's not a traditional giallo because it's an American film. But, I just think, like, it would have been better off maybe lingering on that a little bit, giving a little mystery into like building up to the final communion.
Sure.
To find out as like, Father Tom's getting stabbed in the neck, like, oh, it's, the housekeeper who made his fucking steak too well done. That's why, he's upset at her.
I do think that the way that the film is written, it is required to reveal her. Because otherwise, you get sort of the issue with the Dario Argento film that we did recently, The Cat of Nine Tails, where the motive is revealed in like the last 2 minutes, and you're like, "What?"
Well, I'm not saying I'm not saying that, but like again, like if you have like, because we see this character, we see her throughout, like, and we hear her before we find out that she's the killer. Like, oh, like you had a child, or like, I didn't know that. Like leave crumbs along the way.
Mhm.
Even if there's no real red herring, like, leave some kind of type of crumbs
Yeah.
for you to, like, kind of build a conclusion to.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I could see it. I could see both ways. I could see, like, I don't necessarily mind the reveal, like, because, like I said, there's a difference between the giallo who is where it's forcing you to keep guessing until the very end, and then when it's revealed who the killer is and it's like obvious that was the killer all along, then you're like really annoyed, right? Like you're just like, oh, that was it. That was really underwhelming. Here, at least, like, it's not Alice, and it's pretty clear that it's got to be somebody else. And so I'm okay with the reveal, especially because it does do a lot to try to develop Mrs. Tredoni and the way that she feels, and sort of like the crux of her motive, which is still, I will say, a little bit messy in the way that it presents it. Again, it's about Catholic grief. It's about the sins of the father. Again, she feels like she was taught a lesson, and so she needs to teach it as well as just totally tripping on the handsome Father Tom. Of course, she can't get over the curly mop top hair and the fact that he's just unavailable, right? Because that's what gets the hot blood going, is the unavailability. But I do think it's a little bit messy in the way that it comes together, but I'm okay with it revealing it at that time. I think that it leads to a really great climax at the end, at that second communion, where you have Miss Tredoni come in, and everybody knows, like, well, not everybody, like everybody at the church doesn't know, but Father Tom has to come in like, yeah, I'm just giving a regular communion, no problem. But he knows it's been, his housekeeper all along, and he's got to just act like it's normal. And he's like, you know what, I'll bring her in, no problem. I love that part too, because the cop is like, you know what, let's just take her in, like, right now. And Father Tom's like, no.
I'm going to set up a sharpshooter. Imagine, like, as she's going up to communion, you see a laser, like, dot, like.
But I love the hubris of Father Tom, who is like, because he's this religious guy. He's like, don't worry about it. We can take care of her. I understand her as a person. We'll bring her in.
Which is a great, what the hell?
What are you looking for?
It's a great, like, looking at, like, like he's supposed to be, he's a father, and the church, and that hubris that he has.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he's like, dick waving around.
No.
But it is a hubris that he has that is his undoing. That is his, his downfall.
Yeah, I love that because, and then it kind of sets up, and there's that great reveal at the end where she just pulls the knife out of her bag all of a sudden and just stabs her right in the neck.
Which again, too, everyone in that church, useless. None. Woo!
Again, that same nun is there just screaming in a corner, like, lady, go for help, do something. I mean, and everybody else is just turned away.
And that shitty detective, I'm going to have a cop at every door.
Yeah, right. And then no one responds. Absolutely no one responds as everyone's screaming.
Shit, I was on my direct sub run at the time. What's going on here?
Yeah. Again, not the greatest police force here.
You know what they need?
What's that? Oh, yeah, they need the SAW, the FBI team.
You're so close. Who do they need?
John Saxon.
There you go.
John Saxon in here. Again, this would be actually a great part for John Saxon, because
John Saxon would have been great in it.
Yeah, because it is, again, like another sort of, it's almost like a Black Christmassy type police detective outfit that they've got going on. So
it also is very, like, it does have the vibes of, like, because again, like, that's like, the progeny, well, not the progeny, but the progenitor of, modern slasher films. So
yeah.
I mean, like, again, like, the weird thing too is, like, what the fuck's up with the masks in this film?
Yeah,
I get like the hiding, but, like, it's like this weird
clown jester mask thing.
Yeah, like Jester, Guy Fawkes, like,
just
who is like being for Halloween? Like, I'm Guy Fawkes, skipping down the street, like, remember the 5th of November,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm cool with it. I think it's like a cool.
No, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying it's like what, like out of.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
What do you think about the whole? I mean, like the violence itself. What do you think about the brutality of this movie, especially for 1976, slasher before they really took off?
So because we watched the communion version, the
Yes.
original cut, it's pretty good. It's got a lot of good blood. So a lot of visceral kills. Watching Karen get strangled, cool. Thrown in the coffin, lit on fire. You don't see it, but cool. The after effect, cool.
I think Dom's murder is pretty brutal
Great.
as well.
Yeah, getting rolled off the fucking building and then like crashing next to a vodka bottle.
Yeah.
Hey, cool. I think Father Tom getting just blatantly stabbed in the neck and blood shooting everywhere. Cool.
I think the idea of the knife attacks are pretty great in this movie. There's a real visceralness to the knives.
Yes, and I think that's why this is like the American equivalent of a giallo. Because what does a giallo have? A razor's edge.
Yeah.
Here we have a butcher's knife, getting reamed through people. So,
I mean, you think about something like Scream, where there's multiple stabbings, and we talked kind of a little bit about the newer Scream movies, where there's like sort of like knife fatigue of like people getting stabbed because the effect is sort of lost after you see like 7 or 8 people get stabbed. In this movie, I feel like all of the stabbings are very visceral. So like, and a lot of them don't even end up with people dying, right? So like when Annie's stabbed in the hallway, she just stabbed in the leg and she's bleeding all over the place, and there's like a very visceral.
That's the most effective stabbing too, because it's like in the leg and the thigh, like
yeah,
it's brutal. Like, and watching, like I said, the director's commentary on the Arrow Blu-ray, he was saying that was the scene that he was most proud of, because he was like watching a movie and people were Italian Western. He said a bunch of people were getting shot and killed. Nobody reacted, and then somebody gets spit in the face, and that's when he's reacting. He's like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
Like, people are getting killed, and that's what you're reacting to. And so he's like, so how do you make someone getting stabbed feel visceral? Because nobody knows what it's like to be stabbed, unless you've been stabbed before. So he's like, how? He's like, but I know how it feels to stub your toe and shit like that. And he's like, so, bam, like, she's going to get stabbed in the foot and leg. And so you can be like, oh, and that works, and it's great, and
yeah, I mean, I think like that, or like, later on when Dom initially gets stabbed in the shoulder, like, again, there's like a visceralness, there's a heftiness to the act of getting stabbed. And then the film shows the knife falling down onto a railing and sort of like impaled onto the railing. It's great because all of that kind of adds to the realism, the heftiness of being stabbed. And I think this movie does a great job of showcasing the visceral brutality of just knife stabbings. Because now when you think about it, you think about movies where people get stabbed and they survive, and they like get stabbed in their guts, and they're like, you know what, it's a good thing you missed the small intestine, because you would have been shitting out of a colostomy bag for, like stuff like that. And people survive and they're okay. They're just like, they get stabbed, in vital organs, but they're okay. This movie really shows the aftermath of being stabbed. I think it works really well, and I think that's part of the reason why it is so effective in its brutality, is because it just has like a heaviness to it, to the violence. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the soundtrack. What do you think about the soundtrack here for a 1976 slasher?
Love it. It's a great mix of like foreboding, like violin and strings, like to build up the tension, like, the quick and very visceral plucking, like, and the woodwinds, as you said.
Yeah.
Lovely.
the oboe. It almost has, to me, it reminds me a little bit. It does remind a little bit of like the Omens soundtrack. But also it is kind of unique in that, like I said, it has that woodwind oboe theme to it that crops up here and there, very dark and foreboding. It has, it almost has sort of like a soap opera-ness to it as well. But not like an over-the-top version of it. I think it just works really well. And, again, the soundtrack is used pretty sparingly. It comes up here and there, but it's not like it's constantly berating you with the soundtrack all the time. So it has a nice mix of that sort of like religious organ too, but doesn't rely too much on synth that you would expect from a film of this time period. So I always thought that the soundtrack was really really strong in this movie, and just adds to the foreboding element of this. And then, how do you feel about Alice being shown at the end of the movie, walking away after Father Tom's been murdered, and they haven't quite, grabbed Mrs. Tredoni yet for the murders, and they kind of just show out. The final shot is Alice walking away and holding the bag with the butcher's knife in it.
So she's bad too.
Yeah, I mean, I think like
she's a product of her environment.
Exactly. I think that the film is saying, is bringing it back around in a circle of the fact that like that trauma, which wasn't able to be, it's just going to keep continuing, because of that sort of idea of religious guilt and shame, of it continuing on, because that is just what happens in Catholicism. Like there's no real, you can try to be forgiven, but that shame lingers throughout Catholicism, because Catholicism is very dark, isn't it? The symbolicness of it is dark, because the film often shows like various forms of Jesus, the crown of thorns, bleeding, all of the dark symbols of Catholicism are on display in this movie. Catholicism is often about seeking forgiveness after the fact, whether you can be redeemed or not. And I think that this movie really showcases that and shows how that kind of forms a circle. And again, too, this is another one of those movies that has many, many, many scenes of people looking into mirrors and the reflection of yourself in that mirror, of who you are, of what you expect to see. Again, I think it's not something that is, it's not unique in this movie, but I think that it does a really good job of showcasing that religious guilt and the issues at play when trauma continues and isn't solved. I guess one other thing I wanted to add about the movie before we give it a rating. I love when Mrs. Tredoni is talking to the Monsignor and she's like, "You making no sense." And hilarious. I love that part.
How'd you like that nice salad with the big bold radishes in it?
Oh yeah, I mean it looked nice. I love the fact too that she's like, Father Tom comes home, she's like, "And it's all cold. It's all cold." Oh, Mrs.
Don't worry, she made that steak to be like leather, so
I know.
It doesn't matter if it's warm or cold. It's gonna be leather.
All right. Anything else you want to add about the film before we give it a rating? We didn't talk about?
I think that's about it.
Okay. All right. So, on a scale of 0 to 10, quadruple extra large soiled trousers.
Oof.
From Alfonso, what would you give?
He reminds me of like the big blob thing from like Blade 1.
Oh yeah.
That's like, I'll tell you where this is not this Blade,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. What would you give Alice, Sweet Alice?
I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. I like it a lot. I think it is a really good film. think it does have a lot of great ideas, and I think it is engaging and very smart and well done. I think my problem overall is if this movie is 15 minutes shorter, I would be a lot more keen on it. I'd give it like an 8.5 out of 10. I think but there's parts of the movie that just kind of drag and don't add too much to it and kind of seem like fluff. And that's like the main thing that kind of hampered my experience with it, and that's not even saying too much about it because, like, again, 7.5, so it's not bad. Like I said, I like it a lot. I think for a slasher, especially of its time and vintage, it's terrific. But I think your mileage is going to vary on how much you're engaged into it. Because if you're not like super engaged, I think it's can be plotting to you at sometimes. But if you're somebody who's into this type of film, and you haven't seen it yet, I'd say it's right up. Like, go for it. This is a terrific example of what the genre has to offer. And again, I say 7 out of 5. If anything, we don't do like quarter rankings, but it's in between 8 and 7 and 7, 5. Like I said, because I just the fact that like there was a couple of times where I was kind of looking and I was like, oh wow, I'm good, like 15. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, but I liked it. I did like it a lot, and I'm not gonna let that detract and make me say too many negative things about the film in general. Because I, despite that, I did like. For once, this is a good pick you had, and it was a very good pick, and I appreciate it. So yeah, I'd recommend it to people to watch. Check out.
I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. I really like this movie. I still have I've seen it 4 or 5 times. Have a great appreciation for it. I think it, again, it just hits a lot of notes that I really enjoy. First of all, again, sorry to the Pope, but I'm just not very religious. I see a lot of issues with organized religion as a whole. This film points out
you're also not Catholic.
Yeah, that's right. This film does point out a lot of problems with Catholicism specifically, in terms of how, people hold that guilt in them, and can't let it go because of their association with religion. And so that really resonates with me. I think the other thing too that I really like about it is the fact of how it portrays adolescence in a way that, again, is imperfect. Adolescents are imperfect. They are still children. And the film kind of first makes you kind of not like Alice. And then eventually you start to become more accustomed to why she acts the way she does. And I think that works really well, especially when considering the fact that the film does not really want you to think that she's the killer. Kind of wants you to think about why you or others in the film would think she was the killer. And I like that a lot. I like the fact that it kind of comes to that conclusion of the issues that adults place on children, whether that be, over-sexualization or just the expectations of how they should act. And again, too, I like the idea that it has about, how how Alice is acting day to day. I mean, it does a really good job of showcasing the way that she's trying to get through her adolescence. So very, very interesting to me. And I think all of this plays out really well with a great visceral element to it. Nicely brutal. If you can, watch the communion cut. It's not significantly different, but I do know that there are a couple of cuts to the violence that take place in the Holy Terror version. So should definitely check out the full version of it. And I mean, I would agree a little bit. I do think that the film is a little bit overlong. It could use a little bit of editing, but I do think that a lot of it is based on development. I also really like the fact that it keeps coming back to this motif of the rain slicker and the mask, which is very giallo-esque, slasher prior to real, slasher development. So 8.5 out of me. I think it's a really good film. I still really enjoy it. Holds up to this day. And if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out, especially if you really like slasher films because it is one of the most underrated slashers that you can think of, that I could think of at least. Very, very good movie. And rip Pope again. So, R.I.P. Pope. Any thoughts about what we're gonna do next time? For
I have three
Your
films
thoughts?
for you. I have 3 films for you to choose from.
Okay. All right.
Then I have an idea for
All right.
Dirty Harry,
Yeah. I thought of that one before. Yeah.
The Getaway,
Okay.
and The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Yeah. All good ideas. Open to all of them.
Gonna stay in this nice 1970s.
Yeah, I guess so. Right.
Well, this is where our true wheelhouse is. Okay,
You don't want to do any Star Wars movie for May the 4th?
No.
Yeah.
You want to do Empire Strikes Back?
I probably wouldn't start there.
That's where I would start.
Yeah, I mean, I know you would, but my OCD would say otherwise. So like, oh, I can't start with the Empire.
What
Strikes
Star
Back.
Wars movies have you seen? Just Solo and
No, and I've seen
Rogue One.
No, I haven't seen Rogue One actually. No, I've seen Solo.
Did you see Rogue? You saw Rogue One with me? Did we do it for the podcast?
No, I don't think so. I didn't see
I
Rogue
know
One.
we did Solo.
Yeah, we did. We saw Solo. I didn't see Rogue One.
No.
But no, I've seen most of the trilogy, although it's like broken up, and I haven't seen it in years. But yeah, I've seen Empire Strikes Back. Just it's been a long time. I don't think I've seen Return of the Jedi though.
You're not missing that out. That much.
I haven't seen Return of the Jedi.
You've seen all the prequels though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Revenge of the Sith is coming back to theaters this year.
Oh, wow. Amazing. But yeah, no, I was just joking about the Star Wars stuff. We can I don't care which one. We can do any of them.
Well, I'm going to let you choose.
Okay. All right.
I'll let you sit and mull about it, and Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 is a movie we talked about a billion times on here. We haven't talked about Dirty Harry, but that's a great American 70s classic, and The Getaway with Steve McQueen, and a Peckinpah film. So
yeah.
Which I have not seen, The Getaway. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting.
But again, it's in your hands.
Okay. Yeah, I'll think about it and see which. I don't know.
Watch the 70s trailer that's tells the whole film.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, I'm going to go see this.
Yeah.
What a thing it would be to go through all of Star Wars, though. At this point, I don't think, once we get to, The Force Awakens, I couldn't give a shit.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of those.
Disney has squandered, all of my good fortune and love for Star Wars. It's the same thing, though, to a Paramount, though. And CB, you bastardized Star Trek into the Earth. Are you happy? I'm not. If I have to watch 7 series a year, I don't care.
I know. It's
if it's a day job, to enjoy my hobby, then it's not a hobby.
It really is tough because there's so many things coming out. It's just, it's hard to keep up. And I was trying to keep up, and then eventually I just, again, like you said, I lost the will to go on because there's just so many. The only thing I will be watching the second season of Andor because I did really enjoy the first season of Andor.
I'm sure they're fine, but it's again when it's required material to keep up with what's going on.
I know.
Yeah. The next time we actually watch a Marvel film, it's you didn't see this on Disney Plus, and it's no, it's $700 a year to own Disney Plus and it's a full-time day job to watch all the. Well, that's a different thing.
That's right.
So roll us on out of here.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to our episode on Alice, Sweet Alice. Hope you enjoyed it. You can find us on pretty much any podcast app you can think of. We're on our home base at Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever you use, we're on it. Subscribe, leave us a nice review. It always helps us out. We're on Facebook and Blue Sky. Search for us on there, Blood and Black Rum Podcast, and you can follow us. We have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. You can write to us, let us know what you like, what you don't like, what movies you want us to cover, and we'll keep that in mind. And you can also donate to us on our Spotify page or at Patreon. Anything you donate goes back towards beer, so we appreciate that in advance. Again, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode on one of those ones that Martin mentioned. To be determined, I guess. And until then,
take care.